What if the family that raised you had been hiding a secret for 36 years? One man's arrival shattered everything she thought she knew. Evelyn Carter had always known that her family never truly accepted her daughter, but she had hoped naively that they would at least tolerate her. At 36 years old, Evelyn was a single mother by choice, having adopted her daughter Lily 5 years ago when she first laid eyes on the bright, curious little girl in a soul orphanage. It was love at first sight, an unshakable connection that told her without a doubt that they were meant to be mother and daughter. But her family never saw it that way. Her younger sister Sophia, now 32, had been the most vocal about her disapproval. A girl from Korea? She had sneered when Evelyn first brought Lily home. Couldn't you at least adopt someone who looked like you? Their parents, Margaret and Charles, hadn't been as openly cruel, but their silence spoke volumes. They tolerated Lily's presence, but never truly welcomed her. Invitations to family gatherings became rare, interactions felt forced, and every conversation seemed to carry an underlying tension Evelyn couldn't ignore. But despite the coldness from her family, Evelyn built a beautiful life with Lily. Her daughter was everything to her, bright, joyful, full of life. So when Sophia invited them to her wedding, Evelyn hesitated, but ultimately accepted, hoping it was a sign of change. Maybe, just maybe, her family was ready to finally embrace Lily as part of them. That hope was shattered the day before the wedding. During the rehearsal, Evelyn noticed the hushed whispers, the stolen glances, the barely concealed judgment from the bridesmaids. Something was wrong. She pulled Sophia aside, lowering her voice. "Is everything okay?" Sophia barely looked at her. "James' parents are concerned," she muttered. "They think having an adopted Asian girl in the family photos will ruin the aesthetic." The words hit Evelyn like a punch to the gut. She blinked, trying to process what she had just heard. "Excuse me?" Sophia let out an exasperated sigh, as if Evelyn was the unreasonable one. "Look, it's bad enough that you've always been different." A cold chill ran down Evelyn's spine. "Different? What do you mean?" Sophia turned to face her fully, her expression unreadable, but her words sharp as knives. "Oh, come on. You've always known. You don't look like any of us. Mom and Dad have never been comfortable with it." The air left Evelyn's lungs. She had never quite looked like her family. Her skin was a shade darker, her hair curlier, but she had always dismissed it as genetics. And now, hearing it out loud, the way Sophia said it so matter-of-factly, it felt like her entire world had cracked. "You're being ridiculous," Evelyn said, though her voice lacked conviction. Sophia crossed her arms, her tone final. "Whatever. Just keep your little charity case out of the way tomorrow." That night, as Evelyn tucked Lily into bed, her daughter's usual excitement was dulled by something heavier. "Mommy, why doesn't Aunt Sophia like me?" Evelyn's heart ached, but she kept her voice steady. "Some people just don't know how to see how special you are, sweetheart." One of the girls said, "I'm not a real cousin because I'm adopted." The rage that boiled inside Evelyn was nearly uncontrollable, but she knew she had to be strong for Lily. "Family isn't about blood, baby. It's about love." The next morning, Evelyn and Lily arrived early at the church, determined to enjoy the day despite everything. Lily twirled in her pink flower girl dress, practicing tossing petals, her joy unshaken. But just as the family gathered for pre-ceremony photos, everything unraveled. "The adopted girl can't be in the family pictures," James's mother suddenly announced. Lily froze, her tiny hands gripping her flower basket. "But I'm a flower girl," she said softly, her big eyes filled with confusion and hurt. Sophia's voice was ice cold. "You're not part of this family. Neither of you are." Evelyn's pulse pounded in her ears as she felt Lily shrink against her side. "What are you saying?" Sophia turned to their parents, her lips curling in satisfaction. "Mom, Dad, tell her the truth already." Margaret and Charles went pale. Their guilt was written all over their faces. And then Evelyn's mother started to cry. Evelyn, her father, started, but before he could continue, a deep voice echoed from the entrance of the church. "She's right. You were never part of this family." The entire room turned as a tall, impeccably dressed man, his graying hair neatly combed, stepped into the doorway. He carried himself with authority, his piercing gaze locked onto Evelyn's. "Who are you?" Sophia snapped, her irritation bleeding into fear. The man offered the faintest smile, but his eyes never left Evelyn's. "My name is William Lancaster, and Evelyn is my daughter." Silence consumed the room. Evelyn's mother swayed before collapsing in a dead faint. Her father, no, the man she had believed to be her father, looked like he had seen a ghost. Sophia let out a strangled laugh, shaking her head in disbelief. "This is ridiculous. You're ruining my wedding." But William remained unfazed. He stepped forward, retrieving an envelope from his jacket. "I have DNA test results, legal documents, and the truth that has been kept from you for 36 years. Lily squeezed Evelyn's hand, her small fingers clutching tightly. "Mommy, who is that man?" she whispered. Evelyn's throat was dry. She couldn't answer. Her mother, now conscious, let out a desperate, shaking cry. "You have no right to be here. We had a deal." William's expression darkened. "The deal," he said, his voice edged with fury, "was that I would stay away until Evelyn turned 36. She had a birthday last week." Evelyn felt the room tilting. "A deal? What deal? Perhaps we should discuss this in private," William suggested. "No," Sophia snapped, her voice shrill. "This is my wedding. I want you and your so-called daughter to leave now." William turned his gaze on her, and for the first time, Evelyn saw something she had never seen in her sister before. "Fear, miss," he said evenly. "I am the CEO of Lancaster Holdings. Your future father-in-law works for me. Are you sure you want me to leave?" James's parents turned ghostly pale. You're William Lancaster?" James's mother stammered. William didn't acknowledge them. His focus was solely on Evelyn. "I know this is overwhelming, but your biological mother, my late wife, Isabel, wanted you to know the truth." Evelyn's heart pounded violently. "I don't want to hear this," she whispered, her voice barely steady. She scooped Lily into her arms and turned toward the door. "Let's go, sweetheart. Wait." William pulled something from his wallet, a worn, creased photograph. "Just look at this." Evelyn hesitated before taking it. In the faded image, a breathtaking woman smiled back at her. She had deep brown skin, thick, curly hair, and eyes that mirrored Evelyn's. She was holding a baby. Her breath caught. It was like looking in a mirror. "Your mother died just hours after giving birth to you," William said, his voice filled with sorrow. "I was shattered, and in my grief, I made the mistake of trusting your nanny, the woman you now call your mother." The weight of his words settled deep in Evelyn's chest. Everything she had ever known had just been rewritten. Evelyn couldn't breathe. The walls of the church seemed to close in around her as the weight of William Lancaster's words sank in. The woman she had called her mother for 36 years had stolen her from her real father, and now, in front of an entire crowd, in the middle of Sophia's wedding, the truth was unraveling faster than she could process. Sophia was the first to break the silence. "This is insane," she spat, her voice rising with hysteria. "This man is a liar. He's ruining my wedding." But her face was drained of color, and Evelyn saw the way her hands trembled. William remained composed, unbothered by Sophia's outburst. He extended the envelope toward Evelyn. "Inside are the legal documents proving everything I've said. Birth records, adoption papers, DNA test results. I have spent years preparing for this moment." Evelyn's mother, Margaret, was shaking now, her face contorted in a mix of fear and anger. "You had no right," she choked out. "We raised her. She's ours." William's jaw clenched, but his voice was controlled. "You stole her." Charles, the man Evelyn had believed was her father, stepped forward, his face pale. "William, listen. No, you listen." William cut in, his tone deadly calm. "I honored our agreement. I stayed away. I let you raise my daughter because I thought it was what was best for her. But you lied to her. You made her feel like she never belonged. And now I'm here to set the record straight." Evelyn's heart pounded. She turned to the people who had raised her, her voice barely above a whisper. "Is it true?" Margaret's eyes filled with tears. "We loved you, Evelyn. We gave you everything." Evelyn swallowed hard, her voice shaking. "You gave me nothing but a lifetime of feeling like an outsider." Silence. Sophia scoffed, crossing her arms. "So what now? You're just gonna run off with your long-lost billionaire daddy and abandon the family that raised you?" Evelyn exhaled sharply and straightened her shoulders. For the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid to speak her truth. "You're right, Sophia," she said, her voice steady. "I was never part of this family, and thank God for that." Sophia let out a bitter laugh. "Of course, just run away. You and your little charity case never belonged here anyway." Evelyn's hands clenched, but before she could speak, a small voice broke through the tension. Mommy? Lily was tugging at her sleeve, looking between her and William with wide, innocent eyes. He's like us, isn't he? She whispered. He was looking for you, just like you looked for me. Evelyn felt her breath hitch, emotion rising in her throat. Lily's words hit her with stunning clarity. She had fought so hard for her daughter, to give her a home where she was loved unconditionally. And now, for the first time in her life, she realized she deserved that too. She took Lily's hand, turned her back on the people who had never truly been her family, and walked away. William took them to a quiet restaurant, a stark contrast from the chaos they had just left behind. Evelyn barely spoke, still reeling from everything she had learned. Lily, on the other hand, had no hesitation. She was full of questions, eyes shining with curiosity. So, does this mean you're my grandpa? She asked between bites of ice cream. William chuckled, glancing at Evelyn for permission. If your mother allows it, I would love to be your grandfather. Evelyn looked at the man sitting across from her, the stranger who wasn't a stranger at all. She had spent years feeling like she didn't belong, and yet, here was someone who had spent just as many years searching for her. Slowly, she nodded. Tell me everything, she said at last. From the beginning. William nodded, pulling a leather-bound photo album from his briefcase. Your mother, Isabel, was an architect, he began. We met when her firm was hired to design my company's headquarters. It was love at first sight. Evelyn flipped through the pages, staring at photos of a beautiful, joyful couple. They looked so in love, so full of life. Her parents. When she got pregnant with you, it was the happiest moment of our lives, William continued, his voice thick with emotion. But there were complications during childbirth. Evelyn's hands trembled as she traced her mother's face in a hospital photo. She was holding a newborn, looking down at her with pure love. She chose you, William said softly. Tears spilled down Evelyn's cheeks. I fell apart after she died, William admitted. I was lost, and in my grief, I trusted the wrong person, Margaret. She convinced me I was incapable of raising you. She said you needed a real family, stability, that I was too broken to be a father. I believed her. I signed the papers, and I have regretted it every single day since. Evelyn clenched her fists. Why did you wait so long? The legal agreement I signed stated I couldn't contact you until you turned 36. He exhaled sharply, shaking his head. For the past 3 decades, I've been gathering evidence, building a case, but most of all, watching over you from a distance. A shiver ran down Evelyn's spine. You watched me? William nodded solemnly. I was at your college graduation, sitting in the last row. When you adopted Lily, I hired private investigators to make sure you were both safe. And when you opened your bookstore, I was your first customer, though you didn't recognize me. Lily gasped, her spoon clattering onto the table. Wait, the man with the sunglasses who buys books every month? William smiled. That was me. I couldn't be in your life, but I needed to be part of it in some way. Evelyn stared at him, her entire past reframing itself in her mind. Everything made sense now. Wait a minute, she murmured, a memory surfacing. The loan for my bookstore. The bank approved it so fast. William gave a guilty nod. Your business plan was solid on its own, but I may have pulled a few strings. Her phone vibrated for the 100th time. Calls, messages, all from the people she had once called family. She ignored them. What happens now? She asked. William leaned back. That's up to you. His voice was gentle but firm. Legally, you are my heir. Lancaster Holdings will be yours someday. But more importantly, I want the chance to be your father and Lily's grandfather. Evelyn's heart pounded. Do I have to decide right now? Of course not. Take all the time you need. He hesitated, then reached into his briefcase again. His fingers lingered for a moment before pulling out another envelope. His voice was softer this time, almost reverent. Your mother left this for you. Evelyn's hands trembled as she took it. She opened the envelope, revealing a slightly aged letter. As she read the words written by the woman who had given her life, her breath hitched. My dearest Evelyn, if you are reading this, it means I am no longer with you. But never, not for a second, doubt that you were loved beyond words. Tears blurred Evelyn's vision. For the first time in her life, she finally knew where she belonged. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions. Evelyn couldn't stop thinking about the letter from her mother. the weight of those words settling deep in her heart. She had spent her whole life feeling like she didn't belong, like she was never enough for the people who raised her. But now she understood she had always been enough. She had just been in the wrong place with the wrong people. Her phone remained filled with unread messages from Margaret, Charles, and Sophia, each one laced with guilt, demands, or desperation. She ignored them all. She owed them nothing. They had stolen her past. She refused to let them steal her future. Instead, she focused on building something real. William was patient, giving her space but never leaving. Slowly, she allowed herself to trust him, to accept that she had a father who had never stopped looking for her. And Lily, full of innocence and love, welcomed him without hesitation. Grandpa, she called him, like she had known him forever. For the first time, Evelyn felt a sense of peace she had never known before. She wasn't just reclaiming her identity, she was rewriting her story on her own terms with the people who truly loved her. Evelyn's journey wasn't just about uncovering the truth, it was about reclaiming her identity and choosing the family that truly loved her. She learned that family isn't defined by blood, but by those who stand by you, who fight for you, and who love you unconditionally. Sometimes, walking away from those who never valued you is the first step to finding where you truly belong. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful and unforgettable stories like this one.